Welcome back to Kaulig Racing, your one-stop shop for all things Kaulig Racing, Dingernation, and SVGNation. This is going to be part 2 of our interview with Kaulig Racing's technical director, Mike Cook. But for you SVG fans, we got some stuff spread out throughout the video for each and all of you. I strongly suggest everybody watches the interview all the way through. You can really learn a lot when it comes to NASCAR and just how difficult things can be and how driving styles can actually affect setups and how not the same thing works for every driver. Our multiple choice question for this video, though, is do you like SVG's Chicago Xfinity scheme? And we're going to tell you at the end of this video why this might be their solution to SVG and Connor Zilisch being on the Cup roster next year. Comment down below and share your thoughts there. Big shout out to our channel sponsor, Lynn, over at SVGNation on Facebook. Check it out. That's the place to go. Follow us on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, at Kaulignation or at Yount Racing 45.
You brought up Ty's performance, and we both, Sean and I, agreed that he was punching way above his weight class on this last weekend. I mean, he hasn't performed overly well on road courses in the past. So, just another example of him having a strong run, and he's had numerous strong runs all year long. I mean, I would be the first to admit a couple of years ago, I was very strongly opinion that he wasn't the best fit for the team. But, now that we're a third of the way through the season, he's really kind of proven me wrong from a performance standpoint. He's had a lot of speed and been really consistently running top 20, but he also hasn't really gotten those finishes. Something inevitably happens, whether if it was contact, cut a tire down like it was this week, or a myriad of reasons that he hasn't been able to finish off these races and finish where he's ran, statistically. How do you go to him and just encourage him to continue to perform, and how are you able to help him improve some of these finishes that maybe he's just not seemingly able to complete at the end of these races?
Yeah, that's a great question. And this is a hard week. That was like during the race weekends, I spend most of my time with the 10 car and help support them. And, I'm pretty vested in it. And it's been a struggle because it's like you're waiting what's going to happen next, right? Like, okay. And it's so frustrating. Like at the end of the day, you are what you are in the points, and that is where we are. It's not good. And I feel like our performance has been better than that, but no one's going to give Ty Dillon an inch. Like you mentioned before, it's the same as Will Brown coming in, right? Like, you don't deserve to be here, that whole story. And like, I don't think that's true. Like, Ty works his butt off. He's actually a really talented driver, has amazing restarts. He hasn't had like a consistent ride to really just work with the team and like keep getting better. Like, kind of what I go back to say, like, we don't practice that much. He doesn't have that much time in next gen cars in the first place. And so it's been a little bit of a learning curve early in the year. And you got to think of it, like, even though this team was around last year, it's kind of a rookie team. You have a rookie crew chief. There's a lot of new components to it. And so we've made some rookie mistakes. We've run out of fuel. The team has let them down a little bit. And then there's been other times when, we got a flat tire at Atlanta. We got a flat tire this week. Man, there's so many instances when you're like, at Coda, we got spun out by the 2 car before we even got our race going. And it just seems to, like, if you looked over time, I think the performance of the cars have gotten better. And he's run, well in the top 20 most of the time. But we haven't got those finishes, and that's on us. And we have to be better. And we will. I feel like, we ran out of fuel, and then we addressed that. We work with the pit crew to address that. Whatever's the low-hanging fruit, we address, and we fix that problem, and then we find a new one. But we are going to run out of problems to find, and we're going to start having success. And it was funny. We were talking before the race, like, he had an amazing run at the Roval. I think it was 2020, and it was rain, and he won the stage. And and he was back in the 13 car, and we went and rewatched that whole stage because like it was quite cool what had happened. I think it was raining and it started to dry up, and he put slicks on before anyone else and held on to it. And then by the end of the stage, he had drove all the way to the front. And so, he enjoys racing in the rain. And honestly, from my time with Chase Briscoe, I've learned that a lot of guys who have experience racing dirt are quite good in the rain on the road course. Clint Boyer was, Tai is, Chase is. Like, there's something there when they're slipping and sliding around. The guys that are used to doing that every week on dirt are really, really good. So I take the blame. We could be better. There's a lot of learning that's going on, but like Ty has a ton of confidence. He goes in every week, like very optimistic, very easy to work with. And I think that we're like finally kind of rounding the corner on some of the bad luck we've had. And we need to put together some strong runs, and we will get there.
Yeah, so, and it's been very noticeable to us, and I think anybody that's followed, Kaulig with any level of interest this year, that the performance has really improved over the last couple of years. And last year we were, Sean and I would be like, man, we could just get a top 25. That's a step in the right direction. And I think this year we've kind of bumped that up to, we expect to be inside the top 20 most weekends, and for AJ in particular, probably inside the top 15 most race weekends. So from last year to this year, how has your expectations changed for performance? And I know you mentioned early in the year you thought you were going to go to Phoenix and be better, and well, maybe it was a little bit better. It was still a struggle. What are your expectations of trying to take that next step to not be just a top 20 team, but a top 15 and a top 10 team? And how can you make that improvement to continue to get better?
Yeah, and I think we talked earlier in the year, and the schedule favored AJ in the first 5 or 6 races. We had a bunch of good races for him. Homestead, we had Coda on the calendar, Vegas, places that he's historically run really well at. And he did. He did all that, right? And I'm kind of like, okay, well, historically he ran good at these places. Like, I'm not sure I even moved the needle, to be honest, right? But then we start to go to some other tracks maybe wasn't as confident about, and we still were getting like good finishes. And then I started like really believing, like, oh, okay, like we can make the playoffs. Like, we can easily make the playoffs if we just continue this level of performance. And so I don't think my expectations from last year to this year changed so much as they have changed throughout this year, where if AJ doesn't have something go wrong, a motor, failure or a flat tire crash type thing, like he's pretty much run top 15 everywhere. And a lot of times we run top 10. And so that's been super impressive. Like, he's carried the weight of this company on his shoulders a lot of times. And, without him, we would be pretty lost. So I'm, super appreciative of AJ, and eking out all the performance we can get out of our cars. So I know right now we're on the outside looking in a little bit for the playoffs, but I always felt like the summer would be our strength with 4 road courses before the playoffs. Obviously didn't get a great finish last week, but it wasn't bad. We did separate ourselves. Kind of inevitably knew that SVG would probably win. And we're going to have to be better in the points than we thought. And nothing's changed, There's still great opportunities for AJ to go win. Like, that can 100% happen. But even if he doesn't, I'm really confident in his team. If they run top 15 every week, they're going to basically walk by some of these guys in the points. And so, yeah, I think that I expect him to be top 15, and I expect Ty to be, definitely top 20. And that's a tough goal right now. We're in a hole with him, but I think his performance is good enough to be there. And at this point, you maybe change your expectations a little bit and just try to get those top 20 finishes from here on out, and the points are going to be what they're going to be. I I really hope that Tai comes back next year. I don't know if that's happening or not, but I want him back in our car because I feel like we haven't hit a ceiling on his performance. He keeps getting better, and I feel like he deserves at least one more year to gel with his team and basically, I think if we restart next year, he's going to run top 20, no doubt. So looking forward to it.
I didn't have this on my question list, but I'll follow up on what you just said. Yeah, obviously, NASCAR silly season's a big thing. People move. You yourself moved, obviously, from a very unique situation with Stewart-Haas Racing closing down over to Kaulig. I know there's reports out there from reputable, if you will, NASCAR reporters that go to the track every weekend, unlike Ryan and I. But to our knowledge, based on what AJ has said and Chris Rice has said, AJ is with the Cup side of things for a long time to come here. I do think it would make a lot of sense for Ty Dillon to stick too. I see a lot of people, they'll just look at the point standings and see Ty's 30th and go, oh, well, you know, that's what we expected. And I go, no, you haven't been watching the races then. Like that's a 20th place car race in, race out, and just hasn't had the finishes to back it up. How important is confidence going into each and every week? And obviously there's the technical side and what the car is capable of doing. You know, obviously there's a big difference between Hendrick Motorsports and Kaulig or Spire or Trackhouse, but confidence not just with the driver, but with the staff behind the scenes. How important is that?
Well, I mean, yeah, like I mentioned, Ty is a pretty confident individual, which I love about him. You know, we could be 30th in practice and he's still going to go sit on the pole, like convinced of it. And so he has a lot of confidence, but you know, I think kind of the underlying point to your question is like, it's not just a confidence, but like as a group, you start to get like kind of baseline setups and things like that, you know, work with that driver so that when they unload, they know the car is going to be what they need it to be. And so like the confidence kind of comes from his interaction with the team and unloading with good setups every week. And just being able to have speed right off the truck. Like I mentioned before, you don't want to end up one run behind. If you're always one run behind, you're not going to be fire off and practice very fast. And then you go back out and you don't have any more tires to put on. So you're trying to evaluate changes on used tires and you can just get yourself in a hole. But I do feel like we've been gelling. We kind of know what balance he needs. And I think, you know, the performance has shown that, but now like, I felt like our performance has been very good Monday through Saturday, but we still struggle with execution on Sunday. And that's actually, as a technical director, you know, my goal was coming in, like, deliver fast cars to the racetrack. That was my goal. Like, in the back of your head, you're like, that's my job. And we've done that. But if we're not getting the finishes, I need to change my goal. I need to change my job. And now in the last month or so, I've kind of like, okay, how do we execute better on Sundays? And I've had to change kind of what I'm doing. And it's been a struggle for me because, you know, now it's more about managing people instead of like managing race cars. Okay. And this is a new thing for me. So I'm learning as well. But I think we have made some improvements in all areas on our Sunday crew. And so I just got to keep working with them and Chris Rice honestly helps a lot because he has a ton of experience and I can go to him and talk. He always supports me and has my back. And so yeah, that's kind of what we've been building. And I think that you're going to continue to see Ty get better. And also, like I mentioned, like, yeah, people kind of drove him really hard at Mexico, but look, the more often you run up front, the more leeway those guys will give you because they don't think it's a fluke that you're up front. When they think you don't deserve to be up front, and that's when they move you out of the way and they drive really hard against you. And so I think that Ty is actually a pretty respectful driver. He doesn't drive dirty, but it is frustrating when other guys constantly move you around and you know, they don't understand that we're racing for our lives and like every spot matters. And so that's the frustrating part.
I think the on track progress this year has been super noticeable for people that follow the team. Last year was obviously frustrating for the team, frustrating if you are a Kaulig Racing fan, a lack of consistency in terms of the drivers you have in the one car. It was constantly switch. I think there was 4 or 5 different guys that raced in the 16 last year. The 13 was on the track occasionally, and it just seemed to be a struggle everywhere. So whatever you guys have done as a whole, like, there is significantly more speed coming to the racetrack each and every weekend, to a point where I don't know if I mean, you're at the track most weekends, I assume, if not all weekends, but the prime coverage that Dale Jr. has been a part of, they have made a point of calling out Kaulig Racing in a positive light for the last month and a half, saying, hey, like, if you're not seeing the improvement on this team, then you're not paying attention to what's going on. And it reminds me a little bit of a few years back when AJ and Justin Haley were making a mark there. A few of the places that this team has struggled on, though, in the past is Richmond, Phoenix, and Martinsville. There seems to be a wider gap at tracks like that for this team historically, despite AJ Allmendinger being very good in his career at Martinsville. Obviously, you don't want to give away trade secrets, but do you think you've pinpointed what the issue might be at those tracks? Because when you look at Kaulig as a whole, statistically, those are the 3 tracks that they seem to really struggle in the Cup Series.
Yeah, and we tried some things at North Wilkesboro All-Star race. That was actually, I mentioned that we kind of always keep our cars exactly the same, and that was one track we didn't, because we were, taking the opportunity to try some different setups to see if we could find something that worked with AJ. And I mean, honestly, I think actually both our cars were quite good. We didn't make it into the All-Star, but we were right there, like the first car out with Tai, and so I do think we made some gains with our short track package. Certainly, I had a lot of experience. We ran very, very well at those tracks at Stuart Haas with Chase Briscoe. And so I felt like I had a good grip of what we needed. But I'll also be the first to admit that it doesn't really jive with AJ's driving style. Tai, for instance, does drive more similar to Chase. And so those setups sometimes kind of work. But AJ he reminds me a lot more of Clint Boyer. AJ likes to carry a ton of speed in the corner and roll that speed through the corner, where Tai likes to kind of point and shoot more. He'll drive in hard, stop, get it turned, and then drive off hard. And those two setups are pretty different. And so, I know AJ has struggled at Martinsville in the last few years. And he actually said it was actually one of his best Martinsville cars. And it was actually one of Ty's best finishes this year at Martinsville. So I don't feel like we're totally lost there, but I don't feel like our performance there is as strong as other places. Like kind of our intermediate package right now seems a little bit more like our bread and butter, where we've had some of our best runs with AJ. And it is also weird. You have these long gaps in the schedule where you don't even race at short tracks, right? So Martinsville is still a long ways away, and even Richmond is a long ways away. So we have some work to do there for sure. But I do think we got a direction after North Wilkesboro of what AJ was looking for. So looking forward to kind of utilize that information and build a new setup for Richmond around it.
All right, as you can see here, SVG has one hell of a ride for the Chicago street race here come very soon, actually. And it's the best looking paint scheme I've seen in all of NASCAR in any of the series this year. So he's got a sweet ass ride for a track that he will be strongly favored to win at. And what it is instead of having one primary sponsor on the car, there are 2. The car is kind of split in half, which has happened a couple of times in NASCAR, but it's not something that typically happens. You got WeatherTech on the hood. They're also at the tail end of the car. And then you have Red Bull on the side of the car. I think it looks fantastic. It's a sweet-ass ride. I love this ride. My question for all of you guys is, do you think this is the best-looking SVG paint scheme that he's run in NASCAR. I quite like the quad lock car he ran with Kaulig Racing. I really like the safety culture car he won at Mexico with, and obviously they've picked up some extra races this year too. They've already added races that weren't originally going to be safety culture races. So I do wonder if, in the sponsorship scheme of things, that could be an option. And they actually just revealed Connor Zillish's paint scheme for that same Chicago race, and we're going to talk about it in our next video tomorrow. Why that could be the solution to track housekeeping both SVG and Connor Zilish at the cup level. Although it's important to note, they've still announced nothing despite SVG winning at Mexico. It's important to note that Daniel Suarez won at Mexico and Connor Zilish won the very next week as well. So they're not lacking winners at the moment. Comment down below. What do you think of the Mike Cook interview, and how do you feel about SVG Chicago car? I think it is badass. They knocked it out of the park, and we will see you in the next video. Like, comment, subscribe, and turn notifications all to keep up with all of our videos.